We're going to start the installation of Kali Linux on a Raspberry Pi 4 by downloading an image of Kali that we're going to burn onto an SD card that'll serve as the hard drive for the Raspberry Pi. If you go out to the Kali Images download site at Offensive Security, within the downloads, there's going to be a section for the Raspberry Pi. And there's two choices for the Raspberry Pi 4. There's a 32-bit operating system here at the first line, and then you also have the option of the 64-bit operating system. If you're running the Raspberry Pi 4 with the 8 gigabytes of RAM, you should definitely use the 64-bit option because it'll be able to address all that extra space. If you're using the 1 gigabyte version or the 4 gigabyte version, you could use the 32-bit version of Kali OS, but you won't be taking advantage of the larger registers that are on the Raspberry Pi 4. So in either case, I still recommend downloading the 64-bit image even if you don't have the maximum amount of RAM. So you click on the link and download the image. This can take a while because it is a large file. Once you've downloaded the image, we're going to transfer that image over onto the SD card. In order to do that, we use an SD card burner or imager. Now, depending on the operating system you have, Windows, Linux, or Mac, there's a lot of different choices of tools to do this. For this demo, I chose to use the Balena Etcher tool because it has options available for Mac and for Windows and Linux. Since I don't know what operating system you have, this technique will give us the maximum amount of flexibility. But if you prefer an etcher for your operating system that you know how to use well or that you're used to, certainly feel free to use that for these next steps, and it's not really going to vary that much. So I'm going to open up the Etcher program. And you'll see that we can flash from a file or a URL. Since we downloaded the file, we're going to choose the file option. Now, depending on your computer setup, you may not be able to plug the flash directly into your computer. For example, in my case, I have a full-size SD card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the micro SD card and I'm going to put it into the full-size case, and that'll allow me to put it into the full-size SD card drive. Once I have it in the drive, I'm going to click Flash from File, and I'm going to choose the image that I downloaded. Now you'll notice that the image is compressed. It has a .xz extension. Most of the etchers can unzip the file before they do the etching process, so this isn't really a problem. Just note that if the etcher you're using cannot handle compressed files, just uncompress it first, and you'll find a .img file on the inside, and you can just burn that image directly. So when we select the target, we're going to make sure that we select our card reader. So like I showed you, I've already plugged the SD card into the card reader, and I'm going to select the card reader in this step. And now I'm going to click Flash. And of course, it's going to give us a warning because whatever's on this SD card is going to get overwritten by this image. This is a brand new SD card in my case. There's nothing on the card. I'm going to give the program permission to run, and it's going to start copying that image over from the compressed file onto the card itself. One of the things you'll notice is that the Kali image is 14 gigabytes. So it's going to take quite a while to transfer this image over onto the card. Just be patient and let it finish. Now that the flashing process is complete, I can go ahead and take the card out of the SD card reader. And remove the card from the full-size sleeve. And then I'm going to take this card and put it into the Raspberry. I'm going to power up the Pi using the power switch on my power adapter. And notice the left-hand light or upper light in the image tells you that the power's on. Then you'll also see the second light, the green flashing light, indicating disk activity. There's a couple different ways to figure out what the IP address is of the Pi on your network. One way that's probably the easiest is to log into your router and look at the list of clients attached to your router, and next to that entry, you'll see the MAC address and the IP address that the router gave to the Pi. Of course, there's a whole lot of different brands of routers and switches, and how you do that on your particular brand is going to vary. But another way to find the Pi out on the network is to scan your network using Nmap, looking for port 22, because that port will be open with SSH listening on that port. So to do that, on my network, which happens to be the 192.168.1 network, I'm going to scan for port 22 with the -P option. I'm only looking for open ports. And I'm going to scan the whole network since I don't know what IP address the Pi got from my router. So Nmap found that there's 2 Pis on my network. One of them is my DNS server, which is a Pi-hole DNS server. I know it's not that one because I recognize the IP address. And the other Raspberry Pi I found on the network was at .85. Now I can SSH into the Kali Pi server. So I'm going to SSH to that IP address, and I'm going to use the default Kali account. I'll accept the warning. And the password, by default, is also Kali, the same as the username. And there we have it. We've installed Kali Linux on our Raspberry Pi 4.